Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. I'm Amy Pumpkin and today we're going to create this creepy steampunk Tim Burton inspired demon ringmaster look. I was inspired to do this look by these cute goggles that I'm wearing on my top hat today, and obviously I'm a huge Tim Burton fan, so yeah. So before we start, please make sure you click that subscribe button below, and now let's get straight into the tutorial. So after we've covered the eyebrows, we're going to get this party started by covering all visible skin with a thin layer of white face paint. For my body and my arms, I'm using the paint quite diluted, and I'm really pulling that paint as far as it will go because I want a really sheer coverage on my body. For my face, I'm using a slightly heavier coverage because I want more impact to be going on the face. Now while we wait for the face to set a little bit, we're going to start the neck piece with some red face paint, and I'm going right from the jawline down around the neck and then to around an inch below the base of my neck, but depending on what you're going to be wearing you can take the neckline down as far as you want it to. I'm going to put a little dot of paint where I want the neck to finish and a dot either side of the neck, join up the lines so that it's nice and symmetrical, and then fill it in. And then we're going to draw on some big old creepy exaggerated lips. I'm making the cupid's bow really sharp and pointy and extending the corners really far out and curving up slightly to create a smile shape. Then I realised that my lip piercing was going to get in the way, so I'm just going to take that out real quick, and then we're going to continue to draw in the bottom lip and meet that up with the top half. Then we're going to fill those lips in with red face paint as well, but we're going to leave out the actual bottom lip, where we're going to add in some pointy teeth detail in a second, but for now we're going to use that red to fill in the lower section of that created lip shape. So at this point I'm drawing in some sharp pointy teeth with white face paint, but after a while they started to smudge from just using the white face paint on its own, so I do just cover this over with black face paint later on. But for now we're going to move on to some outlining. So we're going to use a fine brush and some black face paint to outline that creepy shaped mouth. And these lines don't actually need to be smooth and perfect because of the nature of the design. We're going to smudge that out in a little while anyway, but a little bit of a jagged line will add to the creepy, disturbed kind of effect, so don't worry about it if you get a couple of bumps along the way. With the same brush and some black face paint, I'm going to draw in some thin black eyebrows, and then I'm going to elongate the tails a little bit further than I normally would to exaggerate that line, and then in the front of the brows we're going to add an angular kind of spiral shape on both sides. Now this looks better if it's not exactly symmetrical, but if you do need to sharpen up any of those lines, you can just go back in with some white face paint and gently go along those lines to even it out if you need to. And then I'm smudging that line of the lips with a little bit more red face paint, and that will add a little bit of blending and add to the depth. To start the eyes, I'm first going to make some little dots on the cheeks to help me get both sides nice and equal, and then we're going to make lines from the inner corners down to those dots, and then we're going to work from the outer corners of the eye to create a bat wing kind of shape. And while we're still in the lining kind of mood, we're going to draw some contour type lines along the cheekbones and also line the water lines. And then we're going to take some dark grey or black eyeshadow and we're going to smoke that line of the cheekbones downward, but keeping the top of the line nice and sharp. Back to the eyes then, we're going to fill in our bat wings with some black face paint, and then I'm also going to make another one of those angular spiral shapes like we did on the eyebrows, but I'm going to do it on the tip of my nose just to add to the effect. For the steampunk element of this design, I'm adding some golden yellow face paint and I'm painting some simple cog shapes coming out from under that cheekbone line that we created earlier. Keep these nice and simple, we want these to be quite bold and too much detail will just become lost in the overall piece, so don't stress about getting it too exact or mathematically correct or adding too much detail all at once. I decided to add a clock face to my forehead, so I'm using the same golden yellow but mixed with a little bit of white to lighten it up, and I'm painting a semicircle with that, and then I'm going back to the straight golden yellow colour to add a scalloped border to it. Once again, Amy is being indecisive, as usual. At this point I thought that Roman numerals would look really cool for that clock face, but later on I decided that they weren't going to look neat enough for my liking, so in a minute I'm just going to go and paint back over that with some more light gold, and we'll redo that in a second. But this is really what it's all about. You shouldn't be afraid to develop a design as you go. In a lot of cases, you're not going to know what's going to look the best until you try it out. And if something doesn't meet with your expectations, it's really good to just think on your feet and adapt the design as you go. For now, we're going to add a nice big smoky eye effect to the eyelids. And I'm really packing on that black eyeshadow and then blending the top edge out slightly with some white eyeshadow and a blending brush. Then I'm also going to highlight the inner corners with a white shimmer eyeshadow. To add some slight dimension to the cogs, I'm adding some gold and copper metallic eyeshadows, and then I'm going to go in with some grey eyeshadow to shade around the edges so that it looks slightly raised, and it also gives that kind of ashy, sooty, dirty effect underneath. So I've zoomed you in a little bit closer now so that you can see the very basic shading that I'm doing in between the spokes of the cogs and around the inside of the cogs as well. Then we're going to add some gold face paint to add a more metallic feel, and then some white face paint over the top of that to highlight and create the illusion of the cogs being somewhat shiny. You're going to want to highlight just the high points of the cogs, and then we're going to fade the highlight out the closer we get to that cheekbone line. So here's where I decided that the clock face wasn't really doing it for me. So I'm going to go over it now and create a dirty off-white colour for the face. And while we wait for that to dry, we're going to add some light definition to the cheeks with some diluted black face paint and a super fine brush, just going around the very edges just to define them slightly. And if anything gets a little bit too wild, just pat it out with your finger. Now the clock face is dry, I'm going in this time with some simple lines as the number markers, and then I'm adding the clock hands back in too. And it's also at this point I'm going to black out those teeth. To add some more detail to the eyes, we're going to line with a white liquid eyeliner, winging it out almost to meet up with the tail of that eyebrow. And now that lip area is dry, we're going to redraw those teeth using white liner as well, which I found to last a lot better on the lips than just using the standard face paint. If you have white mascara, whip that baby out now, but I do not, so I'm using the white liquid liner again to coat my lower lashes. Back to the neck piece now, we're going to add some vertical black stripes. You can make these as thick or as thin as you would like. It's totally up to you how much black you want to add and how much red you want left underneath. And when you're happy with your stripes, we're going to be giving it a nice frilly black neckline, which is basically just scribbling, and it's super fun, by the way. See, look, hours of fun. Squiggle, squiggle, squiggle. While we still have that black face paint at the ready, we're going to paint in some cartoonish kind of cleavage. So first I'm adding a black V shape to the centre of my chest, and then I'm adding water and white face paint to blend the lines out a bit. If you already have gloriously big boobs, you may not want to do this step, but for cute little boobs like I have, it's a fun little quirky addition to the design. And now to finish the design, I'm just going to add some false lashes and some stick-on jewels, and then get into my costume, and the look will be ready to go. Here's the finished design, guys. I really hope you like it. Please make sure that you've subscribed before you leave. I'd love to see you here again, so make sure that you can find me. Here's some more videos for you to check out right now, and until next time, pumpkins, I'll see you around!